Good morning to you. Let's get the day off right with a cup of Joe. We're spreading love and positivity is all we want to do because we only want to see our family grow. We can handle these woes and anything come later. Back to back, that's how we stand and fight back against the hatred. If you dig what I'm saying, come and join the Asian nation. We're love, support, and growth. So the only thing swaying doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're gay. The only thing we ask is that you have a little bit of patience. Doesn't matter who you're praying, negativity, you're slaying, grab your cup and grab a hug, say your hugs. Get the day lit.
Top of the morning, gang. Happy Friday. Happy Juneteenth. What's up to all you beautiful people out there in the world? This is Cup of Joe. I didn't even put the episode in the title, but this is episode number 45. We have a special guest who I'm honored to bring on the show today. His name is Jody Sedrick. And before I get into details about him, I just want to share a couple of things. Number one, if you are hopping over from TikTok right now, which I need to check the comments real quick, I just want to say thank you so much. Aaron, I see you out there. Kay Miller, I see you out there. Raffy Tafts, Misty, all my lovely people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, the base of this show really is kicked off because of a platform like TikTok. Like, I'm meeting so many people all over the world, and they are now engaging with my content. And a lot of them are coming over here to support me. So I just want to say thank you so much. Anita, I appreciate you. She said, thanks for a nice intro. I appreciate it. I'm super happy to have that. And sorry. So my guest today, let me put my headphones in. Let me bring on my guest today. Jody.
Hey, good morning.
Top of the morning, my man. I want everybody to see your beautiful face this morning. And plus your background's amazing.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting out on my back patio and just enjoying this beautiful sunny day. It's awesome. Great.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
I'm super honored and excited to be with you, man. It's great.
So yesterday, for everybody who's tuning in, I was invited to this gentleman's podcast. You have a podcast called FathersFyre.
Yep.
Correct. And
yeah, that's fire with a Y. So fathers and then FYRE.
Awesome. And we had a great conversation around fatherhood. And that's what his podcast is about. And so I was honored to be a guest on this show. And during that conversation, I was like, you know what? You're doing amazing things. You're spreading positivity. You're all about what I'm about. So why don't you come on and join me on my show for the Cup of JoeAtang? So here we are. And literally, I see this as a continuation of the talk that we had yesterday, because I think it's such an important conversation to be having, especially around these times. So again, I just want to say thank you.
No, thank you. I'm super, super excited. So in fact, I've been watching the clock. I got up at 5:30 and I'm, working out with my wife, and I'm like, man, I got to scramble and get breakfast done and get dressed and get on to the show. So
by the way, I forgot to compliment you yesterday. I love the beard. I love the beard.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of a funny story. I haven't worn a beard for a long time. And then in October, my second son, Christian, he's like, Dad, I haven't seen you in a beard in a long time. Let's do No Shave November.
Yeah.
And so, November got done, and it was the first week of December, and I was inside just kind of trimming it up, and my wife's in the master bedroom. She goes, what are you doing? You're not shaving that off, are you? I go, well, I guess I'm not now.
Man, beards are tricky to maintain, but you're doing a great job with it.
Yeah, it's like my sister jokes. She goes, "Yeah, you look like Scott Calvin. Are you gonna grow it out for Christmas?"
That's hilarious. That's funny. Well, I want to kick the call off because as I started, you're a man who's, taking your brand of positivity and spreading a message of this fatherhood. What led you to even start on this journey with communicating with the world via internet?
It's funny because I've had this. It actually was all sparked by I was listening to a podcast between two gentlemen that I really respect. Sean Brasfield, he runs a podcast called Young Fire, and Bobby Berg runs a podcast called Student Fire. And they were talking about their experiences or lack of experiences with their dad. And I'm listening to their story and I'm like, man, that was not my story. I had a phenomenal dad. I'm the oldest of 8 kids. And my dad was always present, always engaged. We weren't we were on the poorer scale, but we always did stuff together. We always went camping or whatever. And I'm like, and I'm trying to be a good dad. There's got to be other good dads out there. So that inspired me to go, you know what? I'm going to at least start out telling, stories about my dad and how he treated me, how he taught me. And then kind of the challenges that I've had being a dad, both of 4 kids, and then we adopted 2. And so I thought that would be a cool thing. Oh, shoot. It looks like the stump planes are flying over my house tonight.
We love it. We love it. Adds some dramatic effect to the show. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, that one's really loud.
Were you from again?
I'm actually just outside of Boise, Idaho, in a town called Nampa. So I'm about 15 miles away from Boise.
Gotcha.
And we're about 15 minutes from a lake, so we could spend a lot of time with the kids on the boat. So yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. Well, that's something that you and I related on yesterday, was the whole talk about fatherhood and how we both had fathers present and engaged in our lives growing up. And I think that's one thing that I really think is important for us to talk about in today's world, is because, just not only just parents, but just having a father in your life is really a staple to who you are. Because I'm realizing right now, just at 33, how important my dad's example has been on me as a man. And that's why I'm inspired to have this talk. So I'm curious, what was your upbringing like?
I always tell everybody I served the military under my dad for 20 years. So, I was a Navy brat. We moved around a lot. And so that gave me great opportunity to not only see the world and meet different people, but it also forced us in some ways to really rely upon each other as siblings, because you were always the new kid.
Yeah.
And so stepping into school, everybody was intrigued by the new kid, but you didn't have any history with each other. You didn't have any depth. And so it really provided a great opportunity for us as a family to make sure that we spent, we just relied upon each other. And I think so that helped the bond grow really tight between us. And my dad always, he always spent time with us on the boat. We had a small little bay liner, and we would go out on the weekends on Monday nights, and my parents would always invite people. And so we always kind of had this inclusionary family that's like, hey, come play with us. And it was just great. And my dad was a phenomenal water skier. And so we all that's where we spend our time on, the weekends. So
that's awesome.
And I think that's an important thing, is I think a lot of times we as parents think we need to give our kids stuff, and they need to have the latest PlayStation or the Wii or whatever. And what they really need is they just need you. They need time with you, whether it's, playing hopscotch on the sidewalk or playing basketball or, reading a book. If you got that nerdy kid and the kid likes chemistry and all that stuff, go do an experiment with them. They really need you. They don't need stuff.
Absolutely. That was one of the first pieces of advice I had as a new father, was that I shouldn't worry so much about the material things, providing material things to my children. I should worry about just loving them. And, I'm finding a lot of times that what I'm paying attention to now, my children aren't talking, but they're communicating with their eyes and their expressions. And by me just being present and, interacting with them on that level, it means the world to me, because I know that that's something that I want to continue on for as long as I can. So we just need to be present. And I think that's a foundational piece of advice that I had.
Yeah, it's just really, really critical. And it's interesting because what I've observed in some men is while they may be at home, that doesn't mean that they're present.
Right.
Right. They come home, they turn on Sports Center, or they go in the garage and work their projects, but they're not truly present with their kids. And I think we often talk about absent fathers, but how many fathers are absent in the home just because they're busy doing other things and not focusing, on their kids while they're awake and, helping the wife around the house.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I fell in that trap early on with our children. Like, I'm pretty ambitious. I have things that I want to do as well, right? And I'm trying to better myself. And so when the children came in, I was seeing myself, kind of walking this fine line of, are you really going to dedicate your attention to your children, or are you going to, just do the basic necessities to make sure that they're okay, and then like move on to your stuff? And trust me, it's still a thing that I'm juggling right now. But when it's lesson, and you guys in your show yesterday, the lesson that I'm learning, those times that I'm taking and sitting back and really focusing on, Jude and Jocelyn, is really having a bigger impact on myself and my growth as well. And it's going to be a lot more meaningful in the future as they grow up and know that I was there, with them in the beginning. So I love that.
Yeah. I think that it's funny because when I look back, and I think you look back at your life with your dad, and what you remember are the things that you did with your dad.
Right. Exactly.
I that I don't remember. In fact, I only remember one gift in my entire life. And that was when I was about 8, I wanted a diver's watch really bad. Because we were in the Navy and I'd see all these Navy SEAL guys and they'd have these cool watches. And I really wanted a diver's watch for Christmas. And I'll never forget, I came down, Christmas morning. I'm all excited. I can't wait to get my new diver's watch from Santa. And I get down there, and what my folks used to do is they'd have the present and then the stocking next to it. And so I walk down and there's a bike for my brother and another, and I'm walking around and there is nothing for me. And, I see my stocking, but there's nothing. And man, I just was like, are you kidding? I'm like, and I just started crying. I'm like, I was a good kid. What do you mean I didn't? And my dad's like, no, look around, son, look around. There's something for you. And I'm just like bawling. I'm like, no, there's nothing. I was a really good kid. And I just started crying. And then finally, I'm just, I'd lost my own vision, right? I'm looking around, but I'm not seeing because I'm consumed with this perceived loss or perceived, that I was so bad. And then finally my dad comes over and he comes behind me and he gently puts his hands on the side of my head and lifts it up. And there, hung on the Christmas tree like an ornament, was my diver's watch.
That's amazing.
And I love that because I was so consumed in what I thought was a loss that I wasn't seeing what was truly within my reach. And my dad gently, changed my vision so that I could see, what was right there for me to grab.
That was such a big gift he gave you right there.
Yeah, and to me, it was as much the gift of the diver's watch as much as him opening my eyes.
That's deep. I love how you said that. And Liquid Shano, who's someone that you need to link up with, he has a podcast as well called Coffee Talk. Really, really, he's a father as well. He served, and very, very awesome human being. But he put, you remember your experiences with your dad or father figure. And that's so true. And I'm looking back at my life, and my dad, my dad and mom, they were hard workers. They came from another country into the United States. And I mean, they were hustling, right? And so my dad was always, both of them, up in the morning at like 7 a.m., 6 a.m., ready to go to work. And what I remember most about my dad is that, my mom had to be at work at like 7 in the morning as a hairdresser. And my dad was the one that made us breakfast and, took us to school. And it's really those memories that I remember riding along with them in the car. And, he's big in prayer. So we'd pray and we listen to his radio talks. And I don't know, it's just how my dad operated really it resonates with me, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm seeing how so much of him is now in me, just through how he was just operating. And I'm sharing this because I think, being present is something that I want to talk about, because my dad wasn't necessarily the guy who sat down with us in the living room and like just played with us all the time, because he was constantly working. But I think the biggest impact he had was just through his sheer example of, I told you this yesterday, how he treated my mom, right? How he treated us, how he prepared us, our meals in the morning, how he took us to practice, how he, while he didn't have time to spend with us at home, he took us to his job sites. He's in construction. So he had us meet his coworkers and his clients, and, just how through his examples and interactions, that really are the fondest memories of me. And I appreciate, the fact that you brought that up. So.
Yeah, it's really funny how your dad's impact really does ripple across your life, and especially if he's present and engaged, and it's just really, really critical. I mean, I think that's one of the great blessings that both Judy and I had. I mean, Judy's dad, he was this amazing little guy. He had her when he was 62 years old. And so, he was an older guy when I think he was 81 when I met him. But he was such a hard worker. And so my wife, she's first generation Filipino here in the States. And so her parents just had this phenomenal work ethic. They're like, you know what? We came to America. We're going to take advantage of it. We're going to make sure that we do everything we can for our kids. And so that is, I really see that in my wife. And sometimes she's like, yes, I think sometimes it's easy to just be in work mode, because that's what I saw my parents do all the time, because that's what they did to survive. And so now we have a new legacy where we can say, yeah, we need to teach this. It's really important that our kids have this work ethic, but there's also, a time and place to be present with your kids, to play with them, to teach them in school and all that stuff. So I think it's really important that you find that balance, because it's easy to be consumed. Because I remember, kind of back to your point about your dad cooking breakfast, is I remember, before I started my own business, I would go into work at 6 o'clock and I'd come home at 6 o'clock. And I remember about one morning, it was about 7 o'clock. I'm on the phone. I'm making calls to the East Coast. And all of a sudden I hung up the phone and I had this strongest impressions like, Jody, you're missing out on the mornings with your kids. Judy's at home. She's getting them ready. And so the very next day I'm like, you know what? I'm not going in that early. So from that day on, I made breakfast. I had some nice music or motivational talk going, and I had that morning helping my kids get off. And I tell you, it made a huge difference in my relationship with my kids, and, especially my relationship with my wife, because, I wasn't putting it all on her shoulders. We truly became a tag team.
That's awesome. Well, you asked me yesterday in your show what some of the biggest lessons I've learned so far in fatherhood has been. And I'm curious, I want to kind of throw that question back to you. What's been some of the biggest lessons you've learned from fatherhood?
From fatherhood, being a dad?
Yes.
Oh, man. Where do you begin? I mean, First of all, I think the first lesson is that every kid really is unique. I mean, what you did with the first kid is not going to work with the second kid. So you need to be flexible and adaptable. And the second thing kind of related that is um, fatherhood has exposed, especially when I adopted our kids. We adopted two kids from Haiti, and they're just awesome kids. They came over from the States when they were 8 and 9, and what I found is that not having to develop a true attachment, when they were younger and they're coming with their own personal baggage and their broken hearts and their hope of having a solid home, while it gave me great opportunities to serve and love and become, the greatest opportunity is that it exposed my own weaknesses. It exposed, especially because I didn't have those foundational things, it exposed impatience. It exposed, expectations that I needed to change in me. And I think that's been one of the greatest lessons about fatherhood is that in some ways, kids are raising you to become the man that God meant you to be. Right? You probably were a great man before you had kids, but man, you get a wife, and I tell you, she hones off all the rough edges, and the kids polish you.
They polish you for real. I like how you said they expose you, and I've made content around it. People ask me, how's it going, and I literally have one answer. They've changed my life. They've literally changed my life. They're having me look in the mirror in different ways than I've ever looked at in prior to having them. So it's so true. What is?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go first.
It's just fatherhood is such an adventure. I mean, every day is a new day. And I remember years ago, probably when I was about 38, I was talking to my really good friend who had up to that point never been married. And we were visiting. He's like, yeah, man, I get to go jet skiing and I get to do all these things. And he was talking about all these great adventures and all the stuff that he had bought. And I said, yeah, but let me ask you a question. When you come home, what do you come home to? I go, you come home to a beautiful condominium and all your cool stuff. I go, when I come home, I come home to be the hero to at least one person. I mean, all my kids may not like me, but somebody's going to go, Dad, you're home. Let's go play. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the great joys and the surprises about fatherhood is that if you are truly engaged and present with your kids, you're going to be a hero to somebody every day. But in reality, they become your heroes because they inspire and drive you to become even a better father.
And it's such a gift too. You made me think about it. I've never shared this out loud, but I think that is one of the gifts of being a father now is that, sometimes, well, not of late because of the whole COVID and being quarantined, but prior to this, like when I go work out in the evenings and come back home, before my kids go to sleep, it's just such a thrill and such a gift to see how excited they are to watch you walk in the house, right? We just left for the weekend to celebrate Courtney's birthday, and coming back home to our children, like we can hear them screaming. We haven't even entered the house. We can hear them screaming from the windows, right? And it's hard to put into words how much of a thrill that is. And you get to be a hero to somebody, and I think that's what excites me the most because I'm all about like being that influence.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I have a question for you. I meant to ask this yesterday. I think we lost Jody or lost me. Am I still connected or?
No, we had a little blip there for a sec, so we're back.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I meant to ask you this yesterday. What's been a cool throughout your show? I know yesterday was episode 80, correct?
80. I think you're my 83rd episode.
83rd. So through all your episodes, what's been one story that stood out from a dad that you interviewed? One cool, like impactful story.
Man, there's been so many, but I think the one that has hit me the most lately is I interviewed Damon Rich, and Damon Rich runs a program with his wife called Marriage Refresh. And as we were talking, he shared with me that when he was young, his wife got remarried to a white guy. And he said, my stepfather was everything I needed in a father. I mean, he was an exceptional father, and I loved him. And man, we just had a great relationship. He really taught me how to think. But the one thing that he couldn't teach me was how to be an he couldn't teach me how to be a Black American in America. And that really hit me because, sorry. That really hit me.
I was loving the conversation.
Because one of the things that I've really wrestled with is, and I'd never experienced with, I mean, we have 2 Haitian kids, and until my oldest son was old enough to get his driver's license and drive off, I never, ever feared for any of my kids' safety in relation to the police.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the first moment that he drove off on a Friday night. I'm like, man, what happens if he gets pulled over by a police officer on the wrong day where he's had a really frustrating day? He's disappointed, he's aggravated, and he gets pulled over for something as stupid as a tail light being out by the wrong cop with the wrong attitude on the wrong day. How could that potentially go bad? And I had never felt that. And it just really resonated with me when Damon shared that. He's like, he could teach me everything about life, but he couldn't teach me what it was like to be a Black man in in America. And I'm like, that's one thing that I haven't been able to do. And I'm like, have I armed him and prepared him for everything that he needs to be prepared for? And it's like, it's sad that any of us have to think about that. And so in a very, very, very small way, I understand, especially having been on a number of panels since, the George Floyd incident, of, what it truly means to be in America for some people. And I'm like, you know what? We have to change the dialogue, and I have to teach my kids love, respect for all people. But it's a shame that I have to teach them that they need to watch their steps. And I don't want anybody to feel like that.
True.
So that's been probably the most thought-provoking of late, because it's so relevant to what's happening in our country right now.
So what steps would a father take that are in your shoes to help, not that you have all the answers, but I'm just curious, like, since that conversation, what steps does someone take to try to begin to educate themselves, or begin to, set their children up for success, especially in a multicultural family like yours?
Yeah, I think it's just really, really important that you have open dialogue, not only with your kids, but with other people. I've been really blessed to meet, obviously recently meet you, but I have phenomenal men of all cultures, all nationalities in my realm. And so I think you have to be able to have those types of relationships and see the beauty in all people. You just have to, and you have to look for the strength and the things that you can learn from. And until we start having a dialogue with people about how we honestly feel in every situation, and we can't change something. And I think the one blessing, if you want to call that, out of the George Floyd murder, is that it has caused people to have the difficult discussions that have been simmering under the surface,
Brushing under the rug.
Yeah, and it's just under the surface. And I think that a lot of white fathers, a lot of white people just they didn't really understand what it's like to be black in America in some cities. I mean, where we live, it's phenomenal, but still, I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to. So I just think it's important that you're one teaching your kids to be respectful, to be kind, to be loving, to be inclusive of all people, and to listen, to connect. I think a lot of times we listen to respond or listen to hear, but we're not listening to connect. And I think that's a really important lesson, because I know, like, for example, the first time my wife went down to Haiti, she used to volunteer with her best friend down at the Haiti orphanage down there, Foyer de Sion. And they go down there and help the kids do medical checkups and all this stuff. And I'll never forget when she came back. She was so impacted by that experience. And she's showing me all these pictures of the extreme poverty down there. And I mean, I'm looking at them, but I'm not having the same experience that she had. I'm looking at a photo. And it wasn't until I went to Haiti and I could hear and feel and smell the pollution and the congestion and the noise and all that, that I could really connect on the human level, on the heart level, to what was happening in Haiti. And so I think that's one of the greatest challenges is, how do we listen to really connect so that we can understand? Because when we connect, that's when we can make change. That's when we can see the humanity and beauty and the strength in every single person. And when you can have that connection, then it's easier to teach your kids to truly love and respect other people.
Absolutely. I think, just to piggyback off what you're saying with connecting and truly listening, and this is something I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, is like, as men in America, I don't know it's because of society, or we've been conditioned to believe that being vulnerable is not for guys. And I think in order to really drive that connection home, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and emotional. And that's something that I, pride myself on, is that I'm not scared to go there. I'm not scared to, be raw and like share my feelings. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as well, like being a father and a dad, because I think, being present is one thing for sure. But then when you're present, I think to be able to like truly listen and understand where, your children are coming from, I think it takes being vulnerable and being able to, drop your guard and drop your defense and try not to be that macho guy and like really be there as yourself.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important. And I think a lot of men struggle with that. They struggle with, how do I truly connect with my kids and still be a man, right? How do I connect with my wife and be a man? And it's like, I was in a conversation the other day, and it's like, look, your woman she wants you to be vulnerable. She wants you to share the feelings of your heart. She doesn't want a wimp, but she does want a man that's going to entrust her with the feelings of your heart, the things that you're struggling with, so that you as a couple can become one and unified and help each other grow. It's, so I think the other thing is, I think a lot of men, we haven't created safe spaces for men to have the open, hard discussions with each other, right? We'll just go on, we'll shoulder it, we'll press forward, and we'll figure it out. And one of the things that I've created is I've created a Facebook group called FathersFyre, surprise, where once a week I'm getting together and I'm like, guys, we're going to have a topic, and we're going to share our feelings, or at least I'm going to share mine with you, and hopefully it will touch your heart. And I'm going to be open and as candid and as raw and as authentic as you can. In fact, last night I posted on my podcast a really heartfelt, raw, just Jody's thoughts on some of the feelings that I've had over the last 2 weeks. And in fact, I sent it to my friend Sean Brasfield, and I said, hey, I want you to listen to this before I post it. I go, do you think it's appropriate? And he sent back a little note to me. He goes, dude, that was so raw. He goes, I could just feel you struggling with the things in your head. And I think we need to be able to have that discussion. Another gentleman that's doing a phenomenal job is Sean Hart. He has a program called Involved Dad, and he has a Facebook group of 530 men or so, and they're doing the same thing. Every once in a while, he gets together and he's like, look, let's have a discussion about the things that are on our heart so that we can really push the needle to become the men that we need to be. And I think a lot of men just really struggle because they're like, how do I tell you what's on my heart without being a wimp? And you know what? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to go, man, I'm really struggling with this in my heart. But I think a lot of men don't have somebody that they can turn to. And I've been really blessed. I have one guy, Reed Young, that I can call, and it's like, dude, let's just go for a drive together. You know, we both have convertibles, and so we'll go and we'll race behind each other on these windy roads just south of town here, and then just get out of the cars and just visit. Man, dude, I'm really struggling with this. Man, how am I going to help my kids through this? Man, and so I think men need that space. I think they need someone that they can trust.
Big time. And that's why I love what you're up to, because you're creating that platform for men to feel welcomed and feel, like they have a place where they can share. And, your personality, it's easy you just naturally are a person who I would want to like talk to and share. And I think that's important, because I don't feel like, and the other thing too is people have to be willing to go there. Like we can say all this stuff that, hey, it's important to find a circle or find a platform to express your feelings and your emotions. But if you're not willing to take that step, then I think that's a separate conversation on its own. But I love what you're providing for us men out there in the world. What can someone
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, what can someone expect when they get on your podcast? Like what kind of content?
It's a blend. It's a blend of me just sharing stories with my dad or sharing stories with my children. But it's also me interviewing men about their experiences, either with their father or with their children. And it's just like, all right, guys, what have you been afraid of? What has surprised you? What have you loved about being a dad? What are your advice for new dads or dads that are maybe stepdads or whatever? And so I've really tried to find men of all experiences, men who have adopted, men that have stepfathers or are stepfathers, or fathers that, have been married for, 31 years or longer. So it's really a blend. And I figure if we can talk about our experiences as fathers, you will draw out of those experiences the nuggets that you need to hear at the right time in your life. And so it's just a blend of, hey guys, let's together and let's talk about how we can be better men, better fathers, and, better husbands.
Absolutely. This is such a random question, but it's kind of along the lines with this is like, and I know you've spoken to several fathers who have had various backgrounds, but like, I have friends who have grown up without fathers. And so I kind of think, again, without being insensitive to it, like that's kind of a blessing because now you know what that feels like. So when you have children, you're able to give them the exact opposite. Now, my question is, do you find that oftentimes to be true that, men who grew up in a household without a father present in their life end up becoming great fathers? Do you think it's a mix? Do you think it's leaning heavier towards one side of them becoming great fathers? Do you think it's leaning heavier towards one side of them kind of falling in the same footsteps as their father? Like, what have you seen out in the world? That's what's playing through our mind right now.
I think it's a mix. I think some men use their experiences with their father as an excuse to justify poor decisions.
Mm,
But most men that I've met, at least that I've come across to, they are honestly trying to break the cycle. They're trying to create a new legacy. They're trying to, break the generational curse of a bad dad or a bad father. Because a lot of times, if you look at it, people that had bad fathers, their fathers had bad fathers. And so it takes a conscious decision to go, you know what, I'm going to break the cycle. In fact, I had a really good friend, or I have a really good friend, and his dad was extremely physically abusive. And so he's like, you know what? I went and I paid for my own karate lessons. I did everything I could to get, physically able to protect my mom. And he goes, at 14, I made the decision. I stood up in front of my dad and said, you're never touching mom again. And I am never going to become the man that you are.
mm.
And he broke the cycle. I mean, he has 4 beautiful children, and I mean, those kids are phenomenal. They have great relationships. So just because you had a bad dad doesn't mean that you can't be a phenomenal dad. It just takes a mental decision to go, I'm going to break the chain, and I'm going to surround myself with men who have done it, and I'm going to learn from them, and I'm going to become the kind of man that my children deserve.
That's awesome. I'm going to take a quick break, and anybody who's out there paying attention and tuning in, if you guys have any questions for Jody, please drop them in the comment section below. And I will pick a couple of those questions for him to answer. Also, Jody, a question for you. So if you were given a platform like, and this is a question I like to ask all my guests, like the Ellen Show, what would be your one message that you would like to speak out into the world?
My one message. Wow. How do you narrow it down to one message? I think right now, I've really thought about this a lot. In fact, I did a TikTok on this. I think we need to recognize that we truly are one race. And when I posted that on TikTok, somebody commented to me, said, yeah, but I love the diversity and the strength and the beauty in everybody. And that really got me thinking about a rainbow. A rainbow is comprised of 7 unique, beautiful colors with depth and character. But unless they're all together and they're unified as one, they don't become a rainbow. And so I guess right now I'm like, how do I teach my kids to love and include every single person, so that we can be truly one beautiful, strong, loving race that allows everybody to shine. So let's help everybody shine.
That's beautiful, man. If you guys are not feeling my man Jody's energy and passion behind this subject matter, you're missing out. I was going to ask you, Jody Sedrick, is that where they can find you on, direct people on how they can get in touch with you or find your content?
Yeah, Jody Sedrick on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. Yeah, if you just look for Jody Sedrick, that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, I have a question, not a question, but a compliment from Liquid Channel 1973 says, compliments to creating a safe surrounding for men and dads to be the best version of themselves. I appreciate you, Jody.
Thank you, Liquid Channel. That's awesome. In fact, he and I are connected on TikTok. I'm trying to get him on my podcast too. So I'm
cool.
really excited. I love his vibes.
Yeah, he has great vibes. He's a great dude.
He's like, every day, my little cup of Joe, man. It's like, I got a thought for you.
Any big plans for Father's Day this weekend?
Actually, yeah, we're tomorrow. We are flying out to LA, and we're going to spend next week kind of celebrating 3 things. 1, my daughter's graduation. 2, Father's Day.
Wow.
And 3, my wife's birthday. And so my oldest son lives in LA on a 34-foot Hunter sailboat. So we're going to go sailing and surfing all next week. So
Not a bad job there, Dad. That's amazing.
it's going to be fun.
Congrats. Well, I hope you have a great weekend. And all I want to say to you, Jody, is like, it's just funny how I'm right now sitting in a place where I'm just fascinated with how the universe brings people into your lives, right? And so you're one of those people who reached out to me and we connected, and it's just apparent how we're like minds. And I'm so glad that I got a chance to be a guest on your show, and I'm so happy that you had a chance to be a guest on my show. And this is part one. I hope we continue to grow this relationship and get a part two going, because this is honestly a very, very important subject matter I think that the world needs to hear right now. Because while I'm all for the peaceful protests and people out there advocating and trying to create change on the front lines, I think big change happens and it starts in your home. And so for you to be able to create an outlet for men to be able to, express themselves and have these conversations is truly, truly changing the world in a big way. And I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. I love your TikToks. I'm so honored that you would include me on your show. It's just great. And we truly do. I think God puts together men that are of the same tribe, the same mindset. Especially, when I look at you and Liquid Channel and men like Sean Hart that I've been in, I'm like, I've been so blessed, especially the last 9 months, to be put in touch with men that are truly trying to inspire and lift and give hope. Because I think that's one of the greatest things that we can do is like inspire people to believe that there's good in all people, that we together can be so much more than just standing on alone by ourselves. So let's love each other, embrace each other, and let's thrive, let's grow, let's move, let's change the world.
Let's go. Awesome. Well, you have a very, very fantastic weekend with your family. Big hugs to everyone. And yeah, let's stay connected. And to everybody out there in the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the Twitch worlds, please, I'm going to leave his handle here one more time. Please go check him out. Go check out his content. I started a hashtag. It's not really big, but I like to promote it. It's KJB, kindness just because. If you guys can do me a favor, do me a huge favor. I don't ask for much favors, but go to his page and at least, at minimum, just say hi, just say hello. And I think that's the biggest value exchange. Yes. That's the biggest value exchange you can have with platforms like these. So you guys have a great weekend. I'm signing off, and looking forward to the next episode.
Well, thank you very much, man.
Yes, sir. You have a good day.